Now, Jeremy,
Carrie.
we decided this week we're not going to start with our topic because it's a bit of an evergreen one. We're going to talk about the games we've been playing. And I'd love to hear about your experience yesterday morning during the Fortnite Fractured event. That's right, everybody. It's time for another Fortnite. Is it a Fortnite? I think this is 2 weeks.
Yeah,
okay, we did it.
Yeah.
We did it, everybody.
I looked. I looked. Yeah.
And you said, oh yeah, not this week.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I have things to say about Fortnite, but only as it pertains to Chapter 3, Season 4. I did not play the event yesterday.
Yeah.
The chapter season ending event, and I have not played any of Chapter 4 today.
Yeah, neither have I. But I did. So okay. It's yesterday morning. It is Sunday morning.
Sunday.
I wake up nice and early because I want to watch the Socceroos play in the World Cup.
You want to watch the Socceroos lose in the World Cup?
Yes. We got to the knockout stage. Once again, always the furthest we've ever gotten in the World Cup is the first knockout stage. Played great. One little mistake, unfortunately, cost us a goal that did in the end lose us the game.
Right.
Very, very proud of our boys. They did a great job.
Hey, if I'm hearing a lot of that when people talk about the World Cup right now, of like, hey, they played their hearts out. That was a great game. They didn't win, but man, it was great. And that kind of solidarity is not the kind of thing you hear about with soccer. So that's awesome. Yeah,
like I think like just to go on a quick tangent, I do love that, except when I don't. Only because like there is part of me that I love that when they fucking try and they're up against Argentina, right? Like this is a good Argentina.
It's the World Cup.
Yeah, but this is like the World Cup in the past few years has dramatically increased the amount of countries they let in per competition, which has made some people be able to get in.
The skill difference.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry.
And
stop talking over you.
No, it's fine. The Argentinian team that we're fighting, that we played against last night, they're a very strong team. You know, like it is Lionel Messi's probably last World Cup.
Right.
Like he's like, and so at this point he is aged to the point of him being the best minded version of himself. I think is a pretty good way to describe it. They're a tough team, and they did outplay us. That being said, they did a great job. What I don't like is when every time we play, no matter what, we lose, and I'm still proud, and I'm like, sometimes I just need him to win.
Sometimes you need to be upset.
Well, no, sometimes I need him to just get over the line. Like at some point, it's like they did it, and they just couldn't get there. Like sometimes I just need him to get there.
I think in a setting like this, it's appropriate. Because
yes,
they've been training for this.
Yeah, like I think it depends. It entirely depends on the way I think the team has been run. I think the team has been run quite well this time. That like this was the best outcome. So like look, good on them. They did us proud, our boys. Anyway, that finished.
Rancher Jeremy for a second.
Yeah. That finished at about 7:50, which means I had 10 minutes to get on my computer because at 8 o'clock was the Fortnite Fractured event, which was the first time I was ever paying attention in the scene for one of Fortnite's big events. They only do these every time a season ends.
No, chapter.
Yeah, right, okay. Yeah, right, okay. I never remember which one is first. That's right, it's Chapter 4, Season 1 is what we're in now.
Yes.
Yes. Which
I remember talking, I don't remember if we spoke about it on the podcast. I reckon we did.
We did.
But I remember the three of us, you, me, and June, on a recording day, we were watching like recordings of people live streaming the first end of chapter event. Yeah. And they were doing things like rocket launches that changed the map at the end of seasons during that first chapter. But then it got to the end of that chapter. And so this was like 2.5 years after season 1 of Fortnite.
And there was like a few days where no one could play the game because they were doing Like
Yeah.
they were doing all the changeovers, and it was like a big deal because Fortnite was the single biggest thing happening at that moment, right? It was you know,
I think it had started to wane a little bit. I think it was on a little bit of a decline because remember that's 2.5 years after
kinda
season
like,
1.
but like that was still the era of like of the floss being the biggest thing, Ninja at the New York Times New Year's Eve celebration, right? Like there was a lot of things happening around there.
The thing that I loved about it though was how they contextualized it in game, and how they presented it, because it was this big event in the world that you could go into, like and run around in as the map ended, and the whole game got sucked into a black hole. Like people's HUD, the characters, the map went into a black hole, and then the game was there was nothing to interact with in the game for the next 3 days. It was like, where's Fortnite?
Like if you logged in, I think you were just falling through the universe as like a come back later sort of splash screen.
Yeah, there's nothing here.
Which was pretty exciting. They did a similar thing this time, where you could you can join a playlist, which was like the event playlist. So there was no combat, there was no you had to join a battle royale and hope you made it to the end while it was happening. Otherwise, you get stuck on the menu, which I think is what happened the first one. I think I remember people getting.
It was something like that.
Yeah, some people like if you got killed while you're in the final matches, then you missed out on the event, which would be pretty sad. So yeah, and so like you join in and so I launched the game and it says queue, like you've got like 15 minutes before you can join the match. I'm like before you can launch the game. Like I'm like before the menu, like I had to enter a queue because they were getting some people.
Wow.
Yeah, right. And I was like, oh shit. And so I quickly pulled it up on Twitch, and I'm like, am I gonna miss this because I didn't turn on my computer in time? And the answer was no. There was an additional 10-minute buffer after the event went live, which was a good call. So made it in there with about 7 minutes to spare. And I sat on a floating rock in the universe while a CRT had like a 7-minute counter sitting on it with 2 other randoms because it put you in a team for no reason.
Yeah.
And then the event started. The event was they have like a little cutscene inside the game of Brie Larson talking some lore stuff. I don't know. And then they triggered like a 0-point event or whatever, which is like their in-game multiverse like thing stuff.
Yeah. I watched the recording of this later in the day, and listening to all of the words and the supposed lore, I was like,
what is this?
Either you guys are really smelling your own farts, or rather you guys are really liking the smell of your own farts. That's the saying. Or like you're just putting it in here because like a young audience is just going to eat this stuff up because you've put it here.
Look, the story is serviceable enough in a game that is actually a battle royale that I think it's fine. That like it never gets in the way, and that's important.
Yes, that is important. But it's there if you want it.
It's there if you want it. And so then like a black hole happens, and like the you sort of get sucked into like this like in between realm, and this singularity event that is happening in the center of these like floating rocks is slowly pulling parts of a map against the rocks that you're in and expanding this map that you're on. And
you're kind of floating in space. You're all kind of suspended in midair.
Yeah, so like at the beginning, and then they let you run around this small little thrown together part of the old map. Where like you're doing like mini games, you're like going around and like collecting like these like little floating orbs, and you're going up to some NPCs that are sitting around there, and it's like, oh, like, show me a chicken or whatever. So you go and grab a chicken and you walk over and show them the chicken, and he gives you some more currency. And then it's like, oh, like build me a snowman, and so you like get the snowman ball, and then you walk it over to where the snowman sits, and says, oh, there you go. Or like there was like telescopes, and like, oh, like you look through the telescope and see if you can find this thing floating in the ether from the old map. And so you look around and you see it and you get more currency. And And then
It's interesting.
every 6 or so minutes, everyone then gets like floating back in space again, and then the world gets pulled further, and so you get more of the map, so you can do more and more mini games as you go. And you could also trade some of those currency for like some in-game items. There was an emote, I think. There was a skin, and there was something else as well. Like just a couple of things, like a beach ball. And yeah, and then like more and more parts, and like there are moments which I thought was legitimately cool where like the map is expanding while you're walking around, and so like they just like throw together like another big chunk of this like little area, like directly at you, and it crashes into where you're at, and then gives you another area to walk around, and there's more little minigame stuff. And this went for about half an hour. And then everybody gets floated up, and then, you know, then the reveal trailer happens, and you see the new island from afar, and, you know, Doom Guy is going to destroy a cacodemon while floating, and you see Geralt trying to get to his horse, Roach, and Mr. Beast is
Hulk
there.
on a bike.
Hulk on a bike. And then that was sort of it. They have like a couple of cool, like, you know, transitions of like, oh yeah, you're floating in space and you get sucked into a new area, you see some cool stuff, but like it was pretty boring.
Yeah.
It was like the mini games themselves were really not that interesting, and they weren't that fun to engage with.
It's interesting because I think they're responding to the criticism, because I remember when there was I think it was chapter 2 season 4 or something like that. There was do you remember the Galactus event? It was that one season where they did where it was like entirely Marvel. That was the whole focus of the season. And the event of that season was you all on like a helicarrier, and you just kind of watched Galactus get bigger on the horizon, and then someone shot something and he died, and you were all just there on a helicarrier watching. And I think there were I was listening. I was having heard your brief description of it over Discord yesterday, and having watched it myself, I think they were trying to combat the critique and the feeling that some people might have of like, I could have just turned this on YouTube. I didn't need to be here for this.
Yeah, like look, I think the issue is the stuff that they gave you to engage with. It felt like just like a toy, and it was kind of like, hey, like we're doing this thing, and it takes place over half an hour, so you need stuff to do.
Yeah.
For that 25 minutes that cutscenes aren't playing.
And they decided that was not to involve weapons.
Yeah, which is weird because they still gave you like the grapple gun, and they still like there were cannons like around like from the pirate ship area, and like there was still stuff you could do, but like you just couldn't shoot each other. There was no guns, there was no Fortnite part. There was no building. I don't really know what you do because they also don't want you to fail the event. But maybe like, you know, maybe have you run a gauntlet, and then if you fall off of it, then you get picked up and thrown forward or whatever. You get like helped, or you know, like maybe give me something like give me a falling through the universes, and we pick up Doom Guy out of the Doom universe, and we throw into the next area, and we pick up Geralt, you know, out of whatever the fuck those places are called. In The Witcher, what's the Witcher locations called?
There's Novigrad. Yeah, there's Skellige.
Any of those, right? Like pick him
Camorin.
up. Yeah. You know, there's All Might from the My Hero Academia, right? Like throw me a, you know, we pull him out of the My Hero universe or something. If you like, give me something that's a bit more like, oh, neat, like we're doing a thing here, as opposed to I'm sitting here engaging in the content that is there to keep me entertained while other stuff happens.
I am being kept busy.
Yeah. Or let me survive on the map, right? Like have a cool, like you go onto the world and it slowly gets sucked out. And depending on what part of the map you're on the other side of that, right? Like, do you remember in Outer Wilds where you go through the black hole on what's it called? The Brutal Hollow, and then you come out of the white hole, and the reverse of Brutal Hollow gets thrown out the other side. Like, what if they did something like that, right? Where like depending on what part of the map you're on, you either see a lot of Brutal Hollow go through, or a lot of Brutal Hollow come out. They could do something like that.
Yeah, like maybe you could survey the new map from afar, but you couldn't get close enough to it yet because of a force field.
Yeah. And I think it's hard, right? Because they need to fit now like a longer period of time because there are so many people there, and if the event takes 5 minutes, and people are gonna like not engage with it because it's not enough time.
Also gonna miss it.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to do. So that being said, I think what they did wasn't super great. So they should keep working on that. But apparently the new stuff is cool. We were right where we like. I think we were right when we were talking about like, oh, like why do you reckon they did it early? Because this chapter didn't last very long in terms of time frame compared to the rest.
4 seasons instead of 10.
And so we were like, okay, like what is? I also think that 10 is too long. I think that it's like when you think about the phrase season 9 and season 10 for the bigger thing to happen, like that takes a fucking long time. So like I think this was a good call to do it earlier, but we were thinking like, oh, I wonder why they've done it so early. And I had this theory that maybe they moved to Unreal 5 in this one and they wanted to get it out there. We found out that they'd actually been in Unreal 5 for a year, but this time they've moved to Unreal 5.1. So I think that is actually why they needed to get a new map in with all of the new changes, ray traced water effects, better lighting. That you can't.
Apparently, it looks really good.
Yeah, and it's not something you can immediately add to something that you're currently doing. You sort of need to build for that.
Yeah, I'm very excited to load it up at some point in the next 24, 48 hours.
Yeah, same.
See how my computer runs it, and or maybe even the console, and see how that runs as well.
Yeah, it's now going to actually start to look better on my console than it is on my PC.
Yep. Which is great. It's good that they've done that, and they need to do that. It's interesting seeing these service games try to catch up, not necessarily, but get in line with the current generation stuff. They've got to build forward now.
Yeah.
To be like, oh yeah, we have to reward the people who want to keep playing this game and have decided to do that on their brand new system that they spent a bunch of money on. We have to reward them for choosing to continue to spend that time with us on our platform.
Yeah. So yeah. Look, I'll probably still tune in for the next one if I have the time. I don't think I'm gonna make time for it next time. But if I know I'm not doing anything the next day, I'll get up early and do it.
Yeah, totally. And apparently the new season's cool. Oh, I've only seen the trailer. But they've got some wild stuff in there. What was it? There's like a drone. There's like an Assassin's Creed Eagle.
Yeah, right.
Like Ghost Recon kind of drone thing. You can send it out and mark players.
That's fun.
Then there's this big gravity hammer that like sends you into the sky and comes crashing down. That
cool.
It looks cool.
Yeah, right.
I was looking at it. I was going, was this the thing that needed the new chapter? Was this the thing that needed the new chapter? Like I was trying to like find it.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't. Tell us about the rest of your week, Jeremy.